When Steel talks, everybody listens.
This is When Steel Talks, chatting with Dr. Pat Bishop in Trinidad regarding the passing of Mr. Clive Bradley, master musician, arranger, entertainer.
Well, even though I worked on Desperado's Hell for 10 years, arranging their classical music, my experience with Mr. Bradley was primarily as a listener. I never actually worked at the same time that he did, in the way that, for instance, I worked with Robert Greenwich.
Okay.
However, having said that, my first real contact with his music was, apart from what I'd heard, the first piece being Pan in Harmony. I just come back from university, and this piece burst in upon me on the final night, like a bolt out of the blue. So where did this come from? Because I'd heard it in the preliminaries, and he'd obviously only just started to work on it, and as I recall, they only just got through by the skin of their teeth, Desperados. However, on the final night, nobody could tell where it had quite come from, and it was, to my ears, a miracle which I remember. But my two things about Rebecca. First of all was the night that the band played it, that I heard it. And what was absolutely remarkable about it was the way that he went straight to the heart of the music. He did not fiddle and fool around with any kind of phony introduction. There was nothing like that. It was just bam ba dum bam 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 ba da dum ba da dum bam bam ba da dum bam. That's how it starts. And I sat down there in my journal and I thought, well, this is something else. And nobody's quite learned how to do that. Mr. Bradley was very bright now. He wasn't any mere instinctive musician. He was a considerable cerebrator and had really very bright ears and a kind of intelligence that allowed him to sweep away the debris, to sweep away the things that were not absolutely essential, and to inform what was left with his own intelligence. So anyway, we had to do Rebecca. He wasn't around. We had to do Rebecca as the calypso of choice in the first festival that I did with them, and it was 10 minutes long, and the festival requirement was 6 minutes. And there was a lot of toing and froing because, you know, even in those days, Mr. Bradley was a myth on the hill and a legend in his own time. And I said, well, we have to cut it down to 6 minutes, regardless of whether you want this part left in and that part left in. So one Sunday I went in and did the operation, took that out, took out all the repeats, and left it to 6 minutes. And I can remember it was the terror that walked by day and by night that I had touched the Lord's anointed. But I hope that I did a respectable edit, because what I did was simply to retain 6 minutes of the greater essentials, and to let them speak for themselves. So I have put my hand, as it were, on Mr. Bradley's work. But I think of all the things that I remember about the work, it was his mastery of the minor mode, the minor key. And I said this already yesterday to a journalist, that in the midst of all the merrymaking that carnival is supposed to be, that handling of the minor key makes you remember the two masks of theater, you know, those two one mask is smiling, and the other mask is weeping. And his minor, in anything that he did it, always had this terrible, gut-wrenching quality to it. The tragic underside of the human condition. Nobody could do it like that. Nobody, I don't know that anybody ever will. And it seemed to have embodied everything that I think Mr. Bradley was, that he knew life as brilliant, and he knew it as tragic. And his music said that, and in that way it became almost a mirror of what Trinidad life is about. All of the possibility and all of the grief of failure. Those are the two things that define us, not only in our history but in our present time. And it's only our music that has been able to articulate that. Buxy Sharp, of course, does it. Ray Holman does it. That strand of melancholy. Because we are not in this country a reasoning people. We are driven by how we feel. And to that extent, we are almost always bound to have a tragic underside. And I think really very much now about not of great tragic figures like Toussaint Louverture, or go back into Shakespeare and pick out Hamlet. A sort of Hamlet, almost like Bradley, a sort of modernist intellectual, suffering that modern fracturing of thought and action which is the West Indian condition. I hope that Desperado survives his passing. I'm going to go up on the hill tomorrow night and pay my respects. And I thank you for the opportunity to do what you just asked me to do.
I thank you very much for being so eloquent and for being so intimate at the same time. I mean, it really means a lot. Miss Bishop, When Steel Talks thanks you for sharing your thoughts and your experiences about master arranger and musician Clive Bradley.
When Steel talks, everybody listens.